One right here. I got to thinking today that this idea, based off this Dylan Raiola reports, that the NIL was a major factor, right? Came in with a last-minute offer, swayed the conversation, changed some things. I tend to believe the reporting on that end, and all things that I've heard confirm all of that reporting. There was a new agency, it sounds like, that gave a new set of quote-unquote, not necessarily demands, but like, hey, this is what it's probably going to take. Nebraska didn't bat an eye. This was kind of news to Georgia, is what it's been relayed to me, how this all shook out. So if you align with that group of thinking or that process of thinking, then you come to the conclusion that Nebraska has spent an exorbitant amount of money, all right, on one specific football player, and we don't know about all the other spending. And what I thought about, and what I was texting you guys in the chat, my immediately thought was, I mean, that's great. You spend a lot of money on one individual player, but individual players at even a position like quarterback, it's really only going to account for like 7 or 8 wins. It's not going to be like a national title winning team. You know how I know this? We just watched Jaden Daniels do it with a litany of weapons at the wide receiver position, not just a solo superhero effort, unless you subscribe to the Cam Newton theories, which, I mean, there's only been one of those walking around in college football in the history of college football that did what he did in 2012. So if you're going to bank on that, what?
10.
If you're going to bank on that, then go on. But we don't necessarily do that. So what I was thinking is, man, this is going to create this idea of, hey, we're going to buy one impactful player. This is going to create like a bunch of 7-5 football teams. And then NIL is really going to open the door for the powers, the elites of the elites, the blue bloods, the traditional blue bloods of college football, the money of college football. This is going to allow them to really enhance their total roster. And this poured out last year, or this year, I should say, in college football. We had like 7 really, really good football teams at the end of the year. Like almost borderline flawless football teams. And it wasn't because of talent. It was because they might have had one deficiency. Maybe Ohio State wasn't good enough at quarterback. Maybe, Georgia didn't finish the one football game. Whatever it was, we had like 7 really, really good elite top-end big dog football programs. Guess what? The transfer portal and NIL allowed them to pick great football players from other teams, right? Go through all of these rosters. They've got transplants that were impactful players elsewhere that were, for lack of a better term, stolen by elite top-end programs and brought to there to impact what was maybe a top 10 team and vault them into that top 5 discussion. That's what we saw. And I grouped Nebraska incorrectly into one of these. Hey, just bundle up some money, go get you one great football player and see what happens. Maybe you get to 7-5. Maybe you're an 8-4 football team. Maybe you're a 9-3 football team on a good Saturday, a good group of Saturdays. And then come to find out, based off some research and development, Nebraska ain't one of these football teams. Nebraska, one of these football teams got dumb money. And here's how I knew this. I am so SEC conditioned. All right, so SEC conditioned. Been covering this for 4.5 years, almost 5. Every story I've written on the facilities management, all right, it's $80 million indoor, University of Georgia. $40 million brand new locker room, LSU. $100 million stadium renovation, Tennessee. $85 million stadium renovation, Georgia, right? It's in that range. You sent me some daggum articles today talking about $500 million, talking about $3 billion football renovations. Can you give me some of these cliff notes on some of this information that we found on Nebraska's donation pools today when we went and did some research on this stuff?
Yeah, so I think it was earlier this year they approved, or they're trying to get approved, of a $485 million stadium renovation.
Half a bill.
Just to the football stadium. This is just like completely renovating the south end zone, or each of the end zones, doing some seating stuff, making it accessible to disabled people and whatnot. So a whole bunch of money being poured into that. There's been some controversy around it, but.
So $500 million.
Yes.
And this is all donation pools.
Yes.
This is not TV revenue. This is not ticket sales. This is not anything. This is additional money that is being given to the football program. $500 million. That is their goal, by the way. And this ain't no 10-year plan. This is like a how quickly plan. Did we get on this? Wasn't this just a handful of years? This wasn't no decade.
No, yeah.
Anyways, that's what we're working with. And here's why this is important. Okay, $500 million, whatever it is, $100 million, whatever you think it is. The donation pools that Nebraska boosters are willing and able to pay for facility upgrades in 2023 will now be completely redistributed to pay for play. That's how this works, all right? You take the money that is available, that people are willing to distribute, and you go to Johnny, the booster, and you say, Johnny, the booster, I know you want to give us $500,000 for the new volleyball court or the new football indoor weight room, and you want to put your name on a plaque. Save that, dog. You can put your name on Dylan Raiola. All right. And then after that, we're going to need you to put your name on the 5-star receiver that we need to go get him. And then, by the way, we also need to put your name on the donation pool to the left tackle that we need as well. All right. So that's where the rest of the money needs to be redistributed. And guess what? The moment, I think part of the backlash on this was the moment Matt Rule got hired, he was like, hey, why are we asking these boosters to spend all this money on facilities when we have an arms race now on talent, no longer an arm race on facilities? That is the lesson that I've learned from today, looking up Nebraska's daggum money pool, because Nebraska can and will be, all right, an NIL player if they redirect some of this booster funding.
It's funny because there's actually a quote in the article talking about the stadium renovations where it says, I wish they would have waited to do these stadium renovations until Matt Rule won more games.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's where some of the – because, like, there's also apparently this whole ordeal with Nebraska right now about the university, and they want more money poured into the academics, like paying professors more, providing more scholarships for students and whatnot.
While raising tuition. And
they're saying the timing of everything is very insensitive, basically.
The timing to me is NIL.
Yeah.
That's the time. Or it should be. That should be the timing around all of the programs in this country. If you're giving me money for a new turf field, save your money. We will deteriorate that asset. We will spend money elsewhere to do that. Your donations now can go directly to asset acquisitions. All right, you can go directly into improving your roster if you redistribute your funds. And all we needed to know was whether or not they had funds. And boy, they got a lot of them. And there was also the NIL thing that you were telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
Open source?
Open Doors.
Open Doors. Open Doors is a company. Aren't they the ones that got into the dispute on the NCAA video game?
Probably.
Open Doors and the other
likely.
NIL brand.
They are very heavy-handed in NIL.
So there is a lot of these NIL, not a lot. There's like 3 of these NIL companies that have kind of pigeoned or cornered the market on. We are so worried and so concerned about player representation and making sure that these players maximize their profit and portfolio and all this stuff. And we are so willing to do all of this agency work for you that all we want is a small cut. We want a small cut of every single player at every single school that we do a deal with. Open Doors. You know who is the CEO? Both CEOs, right? CEO and active manager?
Yeah.
Both of them are Nebraska grads, all right? So they are not only well ahead of this NIL stuff, folks. They are the leaders. They are literally the leaders. They are the owners and chief operators of the biggest NIL company that I believe Georgia has a deal with.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
they have an Open Doors deal?
Yeah, tons of Georgia players have deals with them.
All right, so Open Doors, huge company, basically trying to corner the market like Fanatics did for licensing of schools' rights.
Oh, yeah, and it's not just Nebraska grads. It's Nebraska Letterman football players. Former football players in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So, yeah, it's littered with Nebraska all over the names. They were the company was included in the Time 100 most, what was the name of it? Most influential businesses. They were put in this category for that.
And they bought their way into that too because they got that cash. That's how all them Forbes lists works. I'm not salty about it. I just don't have enough money to get my name into a 30 under 30. But I think I'm warranted of that. Mm-hmm. You got anything on this? The fact that Nebraska's out here with this stupid long bread?
I mean, from what we were saying on Monday, it's kind of surprising to see that they have this much because, again, it's not like it's a hub of Atlanta or Miami or at least Florida, these big states where there's a lot of spending notoriously, like oil money and things such as that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you have the means to pull something together like this, it'll happen.
Well, you know what was interesting to me is, like Warren Buffett.
Yeah, I was about to get there.
Warren Buffett, he goes to Nebraska games all the time. Larry the Cable Guy, that's also a Nebraska person. Like, if you look up,
he's
like
loaded, right?
Oh yeah, big time, big time. If you look up all these famous people that went to Nebraska, they're not the ones putting money back into this. Like, you'll read articles that talk about how Warren Buffett is not a type of person that donates, and if he does, it's under an anonymous name and whatnot. It's all about, and so that's what made me lead to believe that it's all NIL based in it, because I typically, you mentioned like how the person that owns Loves, they pour a lot of money back into their programs and whatnot.
Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah.
Here's the concern. I just Googled Warren Buffett and Nebraska football, and I have a bunch of people doing what we're doing, saying, "Ooh, Warren Buffett, Nebraska Husker fan, maybe he's pouring NIL money in." You know how many NIL articles I see? Zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero. You know what I do see? I see that he bet $5
$5
on them to beat Colorado. So we're talking about a dude worth billions and only gambling $5. We're also talking about a dude who, to this day, I believe, wakes up every morning and either goes to Dairy Queen or McDonald's for his morning breakfast.
Checks out.
Okay, so and pays with cash and exact change. That's who we're talking about. A billionaire that lives like this. So I don't foresee him anytime soon just stroking a check in Nebraska football to acquire players. So that's even scarier. All this money is coming from other sources, not one of the 10 richest people that we know in the world.
And you